Good morning, everybody. We hope that you have had a fantastic week. We have had a lot going on. We had couples retreat. We'll talk about that as we get into the episode. We had church Sunday, went over to Tampa area for our friend John's 40th birthday. Got to dress up like the 90s.
Yeah. Which I had to think, like, what is like 90s wear? Like, jeans and t-shirts were worn in the 90s. So I was like, how can we make it really specifically 90s? And Thomas went back to his 90s actual clothes that he wore in the 90s.
90s grunge, man.
Yeah, he was a wife beater, baggy jeans, and a flannel around the
waist.
Yeah. Yeah, looked great.
Leather jacket.
Looked like you walked right out of the 90s. And yep. I found a plaid yellow skirt at a thrift store, and so I became the girl from Clueless.
Clueless, whatever her name is. What's her name?
Cher, I think. Cher?
I don't know.
Like Sonny and Cher?
I haven't seen Clueless in forever.
Yeah, me neither.
Anyways, you did the as if.
As if.
Yeah, so it was a good time. And tomorrow we're taking our daughter and her friends to the Springs. So celebrate her birthday. She didn't want to party this year. She wanted to take her friends and hang out at the Springs. So
I love that idea. It's so cool.
So we're going to be doing that tomorrow. And then Thursday, we're off to Mississippi.
Yeah.
Mississippi for we're going to be speaking at an event this week in Mississippi. So if you're in the area, Byram, Mississippi, we'd love to see you this weekend at Heritage.
Yeah, it'll be a great weekend.
Okay. Put it in the comments there what you guys got going on. Love to hear about it. Have a conversation. Let's jump into today's episode. Talking about money. Kind of helping your kids understand the value of money without stressing them.
Yeah.
With
it's kind of a fine line.
The financial burdens that you have as a family. Mm-hmm. Did you ever feel the weight of your parents' finances? Mm-hmm.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So
save it for the episode.
All right, I'm gonna save it. All right, gather around, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Ostracamps. I'm Thomas, and this is my wife. Please don't spoil the episode, Lysandra.
Hello and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 243 of the Family Meeting Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to discuss helping your kids understand the reality and value of money and things without burdening them with the weight of your personal family finances. This is a fine line to walk.
Yeah, because you don't want to make your kids stress and worry about money and finances. That can have them just totally focused in on money.
Right, and yet you want them to understand, like, there's a reason we don't go to Disney World every year.
Yeah, or every week.
Yeah, because they, as they're growing up, they have no concept of how much things cost and where you're at financially and making wise choices with the money you have. So how do you walk that fine line of, like, this is how much money we have, this is how much is wise to spend, and yet you don't have to worry about any of it.
Yeah.
It's a tricky little thing. So I think it'll be a good discussion today because I feel like all of us can learn from this. All of us can probably do better at this.
Yeah. So. But I want to chat for just a little bit about our weekend. So you will often on the podcast, in fact, in just a couple minutes, you're going to hear us tell you to go to a marriage retreat, couples retreat. Mm-hmm. I'll get to that in just a second. But we don't just tell you to go. We go ourselves, and we had the opportunity this weekend to go to Family Life's Weekend to Remember in Jacksonville and had a good time together. I love any time we get the opportunity to get away and just spend time together, focus in on our relationship, continue to learn and grow. So we're not just teaching and we're not just encouraging others to do something that we're not doing. And we love it. This event has two couples who do the speaking and share the sessions. And I'd never heard either of these speakers. Have you heard them before?
I had not.
So the first couple was Carl and Heather Carty from Franklin, Tennessee. And they have a podcast together called Carl and Heather Present, where they talk about marriage and family and all that kind of stuff. And they've got 4 teenage sons.
Yes.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's the exact opposite of us.
I was like, maybe we should get together.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, are your sons single? Because
3 of ours are.
Yeah. So we'll maybe get that figured out with Carl and Heather and their son, see what's up. So Heather, she's an author, speaker, Bible teacher, and she's co-founder of Behold Women's Gathering. So, which is a ministry to help women see more of Jesus in their daily lives. So I find that interesting. But Carl is a songwriter. In fact, he's a Dove Award winning songwriter. So you may have sung some of his songs in your church. He's written songs for everybody from Elevation Worship to the Oak Ridge Boys.
Yeah.
And that's going back a little bit.
Vast difference in style.
So, and I thought they did a fantastic job. Mm-hmm. And, some of the stories and things that they told were just really funny. Mm-hmm. And then the other couple that was speaking were Clarence and Brenda Schuler. Clarence, I'd heard of him before.
Oh, really?
I'd not heard his wife before. I don't think I ever heard Clarence speak before, but he's known as the Love Doctor. And he's authored 10 books, and they do marriage and retreats and all that kind of stuff. He has co-authored books with Dr. Gary Chapman. Most of you know him from the 5 Love Languages. And so they've written books together. They speak together. And I identified with him a lot because he focused in on his athletic background in sports, and so caught my attention. You want to kind of go through what the main overall topic of the conference was, and then maybe we could share some things that stuck out to us individually.
Sure. So the main idea for the conference was going from isolation to oneness. So, we are one flesh now, and we want to act like it. We want to have oneness in our marriage. And when we aren't pursuing oneness, we are moving toward isolation. And I thought that was a good point. That was something that stuck out to me because it's very true. Like the second you stop pursuing your marriage relationship, you begin to drift apart. And all throughout the conference, they had these like portions in the middle of the sessions that were halt the drift.
I really thought that was an excellent way to do it.
I did too. So like they just stop after a certain point and they're like, okay, what about you? Take 5 minutes right now and halt the drift. Stop drifting apart, and instead, how can you love better? How can your sex life be better? How can whatever the topic was be better?
It was like, whatever we're talking about right now, apply it right now. Like start the conversation, start getting into it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't give you the opportunity to forget before you actually can start working on it. Mm-hmm. What was maybe one takeaway or session that you thought just hit you the hardest?
I enjoyed the session on sex the most. I thought it was the most practical, informational. I thought they did a great job presenting it. And so that was the session that I thought was the best.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
One of the things that stuck out to me, Clarence was talking about tennis, and he was a tennis player, and he was talking about the grip on the racket, and I don't play tennis. I have played, but I don't play tennis. I don't know anything about it. I just went out there and hit the ball around. But he was talking about how he had a certain grip, and he did well. Took some time off. I can't remember. He had injuries or something, and when he came back, everybody's grip had changed, and he was not doing as well. So his coach told him, "You've got to change your grip. You got to change how you're holding the racket,
And let the wrist fall, break the wrist, which he said they never did in the past.
And so the idea behind it is, hey, you have been approaching your marriage from a certain angle, and you're just going to keep getting the same result unless you change your grip up.
Yeah.
And so really stopping to evaluate your marriage relationship, what you do, and the effect that it's having, because the result you have in your marriage right now, what you have in your marriage right now is the result of what you've been doing.
Yes.
And so if you don't like what you have, you got to change that grip so that you can get a different result. Mm-hmm. So it was a short illustration, but I think it was very memorable and really drove home the point.
Yeah, and obviously we are pro marriage conferences. We speak at them all the time. But seriously, like, if you want something to change in your marriage and you want to try to come at your marriage from a different angle in order to get better results, something has to be that catalyst to change. Like, for him, it was the coach saying, like, no, this is how you do it now. And kind of almost convincing him that there's another way, even a better way.
Yeah.
And unless you go and take some time to listen to what other people have to say and to study the scriptures and to really like get away from your normal everyday in order to focus on your relationship, it's going to stay the same or get worse.
Yeah. And so the catalyst you might need might be this coming weekend.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
In Byron, Mississippi, as we make our way to be with the Howells and our friends at Heritage for their marriage event. And we're going to be talking about next leveling up your marriage, right? Mm-hmm. Going to be a good event. We'd love to see you there. Still time to get in on that. Sessions Friday, Saturday, and when we'll be speaking together Sunday morning in their morning worship hour. So,
yep, we're looking forward to it. All right, let's get into our discussion today about finances and how to present them to your children. There is, to a certain extent, we as parents have to hide some issues from our kids, right? Like, I hope this is not your situation, but it could be. Say your situation is like, if we don't make our mortgage payment or if we don't make our rent, there's a possibility that our family could be evicted and lose our housing.
Yeah.
That's probably not information your child needs to know. That is going to traumatize, terrify your child, and your child cannot help you.
Yeah, it takes away their safety, their support, their stability, and man, that's so important for kids.
Yeah. And they have no way of making a difference in that. Like they can't even if they open up their little piggy bank and give you everything they have, they're probably not going to make a dent in your mortgage.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no reason for them to hear something like that, right? But should they hear, like, we're not going to go to McDonald's for the third night in a row because it's unwise for us to spend that much money on food when we can go to the grocery store, spend less money, and eat healthier. That might be something that they should hear, you know? But how do you know the difference? How do you know when to tell them, like, we can't afford that, we don't have the money for that? Or, like, when do you need to kind of hide things and just put on a front, like, we're going to be okay, everything's fine, so that they have that safety? And so that's kind of what we want to talk about today, and we're gonna open this up, dig into it. And of course, very important to Thomas and I is that we give you application, things that you can really take home and implement. So you are going to hear from us today like ways to present finances to children. The other thing that is very, very important to us is the scriptures, the Bible. We are Christians, we are followers of Jesus, and we are thrilled to be. He has changed our life and made our lives so amazing. And he has helped us all the way along in our marriage and our parenting. And we want him to be able to help you too. So we are going to present some scriptures to you today. And the first one we're going to start with today, I think, is going to be a help when you think about it in terms of presenting finances to your children, and that is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he's old, he will not depart from it. And I don't think any of us have ever probably looked at this verse in terms of presenting finances to our children.
Yeah.
I never have.
I don't know.
I never have. But it's kind of an interesting thing, like the values, the truths that we instill in our children as they're young and as they're growing are going to be in there.
Yeah.
whether good or bad. Like sometimes we're instilling things that are wrong and untrue, but we have a huge impact on our kids.
Well, and you talk about sometimes we're instilling maybe the wrong things in them, and financially we can do that as well.
Yeah.
If we paint a constant picture of doom and gloom and extreme poverty to our kids, we can kind of help them to hyperfixate on money itself and making sure that money is the number one priority. So we really do want to strike a balance here and give them a proper foundation to be wise stewards of what God has blessed them with, as well as to be generous and to, be giving to others.
That's right. Right. And we want them to have godly financial habits early on. We want to present that to them through the way we live and what we're telling them. So there are going to be some things that you probably shouldn't say to your kids that are going to damage them emotionally and mentally, especially in the area of finances. So telling children things like, we're poor, or involving them too directly in the family's financial burdens, it can have like complex, lasting effects on them. It can be very harmful. And depending on their age too, the way that it's communicated and the overall family environment, all of this is going to play a part in how it's going to affect your children and the damage or the positive effects that it will have on them.
Yeah, and so we talk about the negative effects. We'll get to that in just a second. But before we do that, Lysandra, can you just share with us your experience and how money was handled in your home growing up?
Yes. So I'm going to answer that question, but this popped into my mind. Yesterday, Thomas and myself were having coffee with a couple of friends of ours who are both 40. I'm 40. You're 44. You were the old man in the group.
Yeah.
But we're sitting around the table and we're just
40-year-olds.
Yeah. We're discussing how we're training our children with their money and in business and all of that. And one of the other couples said, my parents never talked about money or trained me at all in money. Then the other one was like, yeah, me neither. And they were like, did your parents talk to you about money? Thomas was like, no. And I'm like, yes, mine did. So that's 3 out of 4. Their parents told them nothing and trained them not at all about money.
Yeah.
So they walked into the world like with no preconceived ideas or really wisdom on how to handle their money. That's 3 out of 4 in our generation. It's just something to think about that I wanted to enter into the conversation, because you just asked me that same question. Like, did your parents talk about money? How did they handle money? So my parents were phenomenal. They taught me about money. They talked about money. They taught me to save, spend, and give. They made sure that the most important, more important than saving, was giving. And so when I was 11 years old and began to babysit, I got my money and I would tithe. I would give 10% to the Lord, and then my parents encouraged me to give an offering above 10%. And that could be anything I chose. And when I was 11 years old, I made the choice that I wanted my offering to match my tithe. So from the moment I have been earning money, I've been giving 20% of it to the Lord. And that was all because of the impact my parents had on me. And I don't regret any of that for a second. So they not only taught me about giving and saving, but they taught me about the value of money. Now, they are extremely frugal.
Yeah.
And really careful with everything, which was good for me. But then when I did become an adult, I would have friendships and things where people were like, you're crazy. I was obsessed with always saving money and being careful with money and not spending more than we should and all of that. So
horrible.
I know. Yeah. Well, I maybe went like a little too far extreme, and it's all relative, right? What I think is too extreme, somebody else may think is normal. So, but yeah, my parents did. They helped me with it. Now, this is there was a little bit of negative. Okay. Growing up.
Yeah.
And that is my parents, we were poor. Like, we truly did not have a lot. We had a 2-bedroom house for 5 people. It was small. We we only had, we didn't go out to eat. We grocery shopped at the at Aldi. Like we were pretty poor. And so I do remember my parents fighting behind closed doors about money and panicking about money. And I could feel it and sense it. And there was one time when my sister, brother, and I knew that there wasn't enough money to pay the bills because we could hear our parents talking about it behind their closed doors because we had cups and ears up against the door. And we had a meeting, a sibling meeting, and my sister had notebooks. She's the oldest, I'm the youngest, and we have a brother in between. And she had the notebook, and it was ways we can save money to help mom and dad. And so we were like, what if we wipe with less toilet paper?
Oh, no.
So the plan was to rescue the family from financial doom. We were going to all...
One square at a time.
One square at a time to financial freedom, people.
Yes.
So that was one of our plans. Our plan was to try to eat less food, ask for less things, not like be careful with our shoes, like anything we could think of. And my sister wrote this all on the list and we were all like, go team. We're going to help mom and dad. I have no idea if we had any follow through. I don't think we
I was going to say, how long did that last?
I have no idea how long it lasted. It's kind of like sweet, but also kind of sad.
It's probably time for you guys to get together and have that meeting.
Yeah, we should. I should have a sibling
obviously
meeting.
What you did worked. I mean,
yeah, I need to see if my sister or brother remember that. That would be funny. But so that's kind of like where I think some of that pressure came in. That may have been too much pressure on children. Like maybe we knew too much. But my parents were trying.
That was kind of your fault.
It was kind of our fault because we were nosy. But I guess your kids are probably nosy too.
Did you ever hear your parents talking about budget? Did they sit down and talk to you about budgeting and all that kind of stuff? And
we were
and
taught.
Listing out?
Yeah, we were taught what a budget was. We were taught about not spending more than you make. We were taught about giving. We were taught about, finding the best value, but not necessarily getting the cheapest thing because that might not be a good deal. Like all of that, my parents taught us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. So that's why when we got married, we were financially ready because I was...
Well, you were financially ready.
Yeah, but I was the jerk who enforced everything.
Yeah. No, you can't buy a soda from the soda machine.
Yeah, I'm like, that's $2. Yeah.
So.
That was me. Okay, how about you, babe? What was it like in your family?
My parents they fought about money. We didn't have a lot of money, and just the way finances were handled were probably not great, a little strange. So both my parents worked, but my dad and I would get paid, and he would go to the bank. He would cash his check.
Like he would get cash.
Yeah. He'd go to the bank, cash his check. He would keep part of it. I don't know how much, but he would keep part of it, and then he would give my mom the rest to make sure the bills were taken care of. So it was just kind of it was a weird situation. Like even growing up, it was like this is kind of weird.
Yeah,
and they would have fights about that. Mom about how much money dad was actually giving her versus what he brought home, and just so there was conflict as far as that was concerned. So, but yeah, I don't remember conversations about budgeting and all that kind of stuff in my household growing up. But we were all pretty aware that financially we didn't have a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So.
But I don't remember ever feeling like the pressure myself to do something about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think that's part of your personality.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like,
But I don't think we ever, like, you guys had a meeting about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember any of us talking about it.
Did you ever feel like I shouldn't ask for this because mom and dad can't afford it?
No.
Like you asked for the toys, you asked for the video games, like you weren't afraid to just ask for it.
No, we wouldn't really get things like that except for Christmas or maybe our birthday. I mean, we were normal kids asking for stuff, but like I never felt like, oh, we're gonna lose our house. Now, there were probably times where it was literally like that, but I don't remember ever fearing that.
Okay. I knew not to ask for anything. I felt like if I asked for something, it would make my parents feel worse because they would have to say no. So I didn't ask for anything. Like, to my knowledge, my recollection, I'd never asked for anything from my parents because of that. So it's just interesting. I'm sure that that's how children handle it in different personalities.
Sure.
Though.
Could be.
Okay, so if we as parents, though, so thinking about, think back about your own childhood. What was money like how you grew up? Did you ever take on, that weight of financial burden that your parents were carrying? Did it ever affect you personally? And you all have different settings. You all have different scenarios and different histories of how things were in your home. But whatever happened in your home, let's take that now that you're a parent, and like, how can I do better? How can I learn from that, whether it was good or bad? Because if we as parents are careless in the way we present our finances, our kids are going to be affected negatively.
They definitely can be, yeah.
Yeah, we need to be careful about this. It's something to think about. It's something to handle with care. And there are some negative effects that can come if parents are too open about finances with kids, especially if things are bad. If you're too open with it and they're not at an age they can handle it, or it's not handled carefully, then it can result in a lot of anxiety and stress in children. And they may even feel scared or insecure if they sense that the family is struggling. Maybe they're going to worry about things like, the basic needs like food and housing, or whether they can stay in school, or are they going to have, be able to pack a lunch tomorrow and all of that. There are so many programs in our society that help with this and making sure that no child goes hungry.
Yeah.
I believe all public school kids can have breakfast and lunch.
I know they can here. Yeah.
Yeah. And which is awesome. I'm all for that. I think that's great. This is not a political issue episode, so we're not getting into any of that. I don't think we'll ever have a political episode.
Probably not.
By the way.
Yeah. I mean, it might be how to talk to your kids about politics, but
yeah. Oh, I should put that on the list.
Not be political ourselves in the conversation. Yeah.
No. So whether or not you're okay with like the free lunches and breakfasts, that's neither here nor there. But what about when school ends?
Mm-hmm.
And those kids now, they don't know if they're going to have breakfast and lunch or whatever. But like, how is that being presented to them? And
which everything? I know there are like some schools where kids can still come and get lunch and breakfast and stuff like that.
Yeah, and there are nonprofit organizations that pick that up in the summer.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's here, but they've talked about it here. I'm just trying to remember.
And do like on the weekends, they'll send them home with backpacks with food in it for the weekend.
Which is so cool.
Yeah. Because those are things kids shouldn't have to worry about, and as parents, we shouldn't place that burden on our kids to have to worry about it either.
Yes. Childhood is hard. And when they have adult burdens in childhood emotional development, then anxiety and stress is going to play a part.
Yeah.
And anxiety and stress, as all of us know, I'm pretty sure, comes out physically. Yep. It can actually harm your children physically if there's this anxiety and stress that their tiny little bodies are not ready for.
Yeah, and just it affects the behavior and everything else. Adult problems are for adults. Kid problems are for kids, and we shouldn't place adult problems on our children. So you have the issue, as Lysandra mentioned, about anxiety and stress. I think also guilt or pressure is one of those negative consequences.
Which this is what I felt as a child.
Yeah.
Which is also my personality, to feel guilt and pressure all the time.
Yeah, it's like you're like the perfect storm for guilt and pressure because it's your personality style. It is your religious upbringing, our cultish way we were brought up. It was like beat the guilt into you.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling guilt, then you're probably, going to hell. So you add some of the things that you chose to hear.
Yes.
On top of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I do think that's different. You chose to hear. It wasn't like your parents were just like oversharing in front of you. Mm-mm. But one of the things Lysandra has felt, and this is exactly what your kids could feel as well, if you're not careful in the way that you handle these financial conversations, they can take on, as we mentioned, the adult issue and problem of the responsibility for the family's financial problems. And that's not a kid problem. That's not something a child should ever have to worry about.
Right, because our kids are not responsible for our financial situation. We are.
Yeah. So whatever financial situation I'm in, and we can blame a lot of stuff, right? We can blame the economy, we can blame this or that, but we do live in a day and a time where there's a lot of ways to earn an income, and you might have to work long hours. You might have to go to your job during the day, and you might have to Uber Eats at night or something. But it's up to us as adults to figure it out and to bear that burden. And our kids, if we don't handle it right, they take on and feel responsible for the family's financial problems, or they feel the pressure to help, like Lysandra did, and her siblings, by not asking for things, taking on jobs too young, trying to fix adult issues. Now, I think there are great ways to have conversations about, when your kids ask you, hey, can we go to McDonald's tonight? Or can I get this toy? Or can we go on this trip or whatever? I think there's good ways to approach that. We'll get into that a little later on, but being careful about how you address the issue, especially in front of your kids.
Yeah, and depending on how you present it, you can actually be bringing on your children shame and social comparison. So if you repeatedly are saying to your kids, we're poor, we have no money, we're poor, we can't even afford it, poverty. What do the girls say? Pavo.
Yes.
That's the new thing. The new way to say you're poor is you're pavo, which is short for poverty. For those of you who are as old as me who had to ask the question.
I never thought of this until right now when you said social comparison.
Okay.
One area where I felt less than was in like clothes and shoes and stuff. Cause like we wore like Walmart shoes. And stuff like that. So I didn't think of that earlier. I haven't thought about it in a long time, but when you talk about social comparison, I remember feeling that.
What did your friends wear?
Most of them wore name brand stuff like Nikes
Nike.
and stuff like that. Air Jordans.
In the 90s, Fuji? Fila was big. Fila was like the thing for a little bit.
Well, Fila was less than.
Was it?
It was not an Air Jordan thing.
I was so pavo that I thought Fila was great.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know.
So, yeah, Air Jordans were the thing.
Okay. Okay. So you felt less than. Did you ever want to like hide your shoes or like how did it come?
I felt probably a little embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going to school and you get to junior high and whatever, and it's like it's an uncomfortable stage anyway, where there's like all that social order happening and trying to figure out where you fit in and all that kind of stuff.
Puberty and hormones.
Yeah. So I hadn't thought about that in a long time until you said social comparison.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So I did feel a little bit of that as well. We shopped at Goodwill. My mom was like, why would you go to Walmart when you could get it half price at Goodwill? So we shopped completely exclusively for clothing at Goodwill.
Your mom made jelly bean culottes for you as well. So.
Yes. There were clothing and swimsuits sewn in our home.
So those were one of kind of like very limited
edition.
Yeah.
Swimsuit with a skirt, turtleneck, and zipper. But I was going to say there were two things that we were allowed to buy new at Walmart.
Okay. What were they?
Bras and underwear.
Yeah, you definitely would.
I just want to thank my mom for not getting Goodwill bras and underwear.
Yeah.
I want to just appreciate that.
That feels weird.
I'm glad there was a line.
Even if they're washed and clean, like that feels weird.
These underwear are 100 years old.
Yeah.
So repeatedly though saying we're poor, it really can cause a child to feel ashamed or socially isolated or just embarrassed, especially because they already are comparing themselves to peers.
Yeah.
They already are.
Yeah.
Like, this is how the human brain works. We walk into a room and we assess, where do I fit in here? Am I at the end of the totem pole? Am I at the top of the social ladder? Like, where am I? Where do I fit in? Who am I? And how can I better myself?
Yeah.
It's like that happens without anybody coaching you. But then if they have that in the back of their head, my mom, my dad tells me I'm poor. My mom, my dad says that we are in poverty, or, you're pavo. Then that is really going to create a lot of shame. It's going to change their mindset. It's going to, it can even change how they view themselves.
Yeah, and they can kind of take that on as part of their identity and just kind of internalize that.
Yeah.
Leading them to believe they'll never have more, they don't deserve more, they're stuck in this situation. It can take on like a victim mentality. All this stuff is happening to me. And really have a long-lasting negative impact on their life and the way they view the world and view themselves.
Yeah, which is crazy too, but it makes sense because we do take this stuff on and we let it become part of our identity. And they can actually become, they get to the point where they believe that they are less than because they have less than.
Yeah.
And that's not true. And that's a messed up view that is in our culture, that like, if you have more, you're worth more. And that's not true. So that's one thing that we do need to be instilling in our children at a young age. Like, your class, your wealth does not define you. It doesn't make anybody more important if they have more, and they are not less important because they have less. But that's how you can feel, even though you're not less than because you have less than.
Well, and that can just lead to, digging yourself deeper and deeper into bad situations financially, because you start to fall into this idea, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, of this kind of keeping up with the Jones mentality, whatever the cost. And so I just put it on a credit card, and I just get a loan, and I just continue to make bad decisions to purchase this outlandish car brand new that I don't need, and I pay tens of thousands of dollars more than I should have, and buying bigger homes and furniture, and just all the stuff that we don't need. I'm continuing to go in debt and max out credit cards and do all this stuff, and find it nearly impossible to get myself out of the horrible situation.
Right. Okay. That's a little heavy, right? We've talked about the negative, and we often start our podcasts with the negative, hoping that you'll hang on till we can talk about some positive things, because there is light at the end of the tunnel, right? So what about when we do present finances in the right way, with the proper framing, with the right words, carefully? What are some of the effects that can have on our kids? So if we're doing it right, and we are going to talk at the end of the episode about some suggestions on how to start these conversations and how to talk about it properly. But what's the positive effects? Okay. It can create empathy and gratitude in our children, which is great, because if we frame it appropriately, kids can develop this strong sense of appreciation for everything that they have, and compassion for those who don't have what they have. It can help them have more understanding of others' struggles and where they're at financially. And I think one of the most important things, though, is that gratitude.
Yeah.
If we're thankful for what we do have, we're a lot less likely to be discontent and greedy for more.
Yeah. And I think, we're talking about positive aspects, but I just kind of want to throw this in there because, as followers of Jesus, we believe in doing what Jesus has called us to do. And part of that is taking the gospel around the world. And I think even though those of us who grew up without a lot, we kind of have a skewed idea of what actual poverty is.
Yes.
And, as Americans, even though those of us on the lower scale, now, I know we do have people in our country who are living in absolute poverty and are struggling. So don't twist what it is I'm trying to say. But for most of us in America, we have more than most of the people who've ever lived ever.
Right.
And so if you or your children have an opportunity to go on a mission trip to somewhere else, to get outside of America and see how other people in the world live and what they have to deal with on a regular basis, where they have to have their water trucked in, or they've got to go and literally to the well and walk down and get the water themselves.
Yes.
Live in little quote unquote houses that they've made from garbage.
Yeah.
It'll really change your perspective on how much each of us have been blessed here, and reframe the way that we look at things. And you talk about that compassion, that gratitude, and so getting outside of ourselves. But that is, you have the right conversation, like Lysandra said, and you develop that empathy and gratitude. But also, one of the positive aspects of framing it correctly, being careful how you approach the conversation, is you teach your kids financial literacy. Mm-hmm. And we ought to be having age-appropriate conversations about budgeting, saving, needs versus wants.
Yes.
We're teaching our children valuable life skills that a lot of them aren't getting in schools. Mm-hmm. Like, in a lot of schools, they're not being taught about budgeting, saving, credit, how to do your taxes. Like, they're not being taught these things.
Right. But they are definitely being taught by commercials and advertising to just get a credit card and you can have anything you want.
Yeah.
Get that home equity loan. You can have anything you want. Like, that is literally being taught to them and presented to them in very clever ways. So we have to come at that. We have to come at this topic from the truth, from reality, from a biblical perspective, and be like, listen, the answer is not just getting a credit card or whatever. So even if we're not talking about it, listen, it is being talked about. It's being talked about in advertising and stuff. So they are getting messages already. We've got to be proactive.
And the point that I'm trying to make is, as parents, the onus is on us to teach our kids.
Yes.
It's not the school's responsibility. It's not your church's responsibility. Mm-hmm. It's your responsibility. It's my responsibility as a parent to make sure that my children learn this stuff. And so every day we have opportunities for these conversations, every week, every month, every year, to sit down and have appropriate conversations. And I like this verse in Proverbs 13:11. I think it'd be good for us to make sure that our children understand this as well. Because we often think, well, man, if I just won the lottery, or if I wish I had some rich uncle I didn't know about that left me this great inheritance. But, Proverbs 13:11 says, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, mm-hmm. but whoever gathers little by little will increase it.
Yeah.
They're learning the value of money. And so we ought to be teaching them patience mm-hmm. when it comes to finances.
Yeah.
Teach them about saving and the value of diligent effort. And all these things are just key concepts and components of financial literacy.
Mm-hmm. This one is my little hobby horse. I could get on this topic, sit there and ride it to the end of the episode.
Yeah. And I might have to, I'll have to drag you off of it in a second here, but I'll give you a couple minutes to just go with it. And
this is what I want to talk about. Work ethic, resilience, working hard. This is one thing that we can teach our children if we're talking about finances in an appropriate way and age appropriate for them, is work ethic. And man, I pound this into our poor children.
Well, Scripture says if you don't work, you shouldn't eat. Like we need to have a work ethic.
Yeah.
It is vitally important.
Which, by the way, that's a scripture verse that our children had to memorize as soon as they could fully talk. They had to memorize that verse because if they didn't pick up their toys, they weren't getting their snack.
It was like that and be kind to one another. Those two.
Those were those were really important to me when the kids were little, but they have memorized other verses too. But yeah, work ethic. So some kids grow up with this deep motivation to work hard and pursue education and ambition and have a job and improve their future. And some of that can happen from early struggles. Like we know someone whose family was evicted. We know someone who as a child, they grew up, like they had a portion of their childhood where they were living in a car with their family. And that person has swung the pendulum far the other direction, where they are very, very hard workers, works extremely hard to provide for their family to make sure that that never happens to them. And that can be, in a way, a positive result. I guess the silver lining of early childhood struggles and seeing the difficulties, parents can have with money. Oftentimes, though, they just follow the pattern rather than changing, breaking the cycle. Right?
There are those who use it as fuel to rise above, but often that's not the case.
Yeah, it can become a crutch rather. But we as parents should be instilling the reality of the importance of work. Work ethic is so important, and my kids get so many lectures on this. Someday, if you ask them, you can be like, hey, tell me, share with me one of your mom's work ethic lectures, and they'll roll their eyes and then they'll go into mom acting. But it's funny because I know that my view of work ethic is skewed. My sister, my brother, and I are obsessive hard workers. All of us work extremely hard, and we try to fit as much work into every moment of every day, not just hours, but into the moments. I mean, my parents were hard workers and still are. And so it was modeled for us, and it was talked about, and it was taught and modeled. And then also, I think, watching our family struggle financially, we all have worked very hard to try not to have some of the same struggles. But our kids were painting the other day, an exterior. So we hire our children and pay them to paint, and in my business, and we're painting an exterior, and it's Florida in May. And do you even know what the temperature was? I don't know.
It's Florida, so the temperature was hotter than hot. Still better than cold and ice and snow.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. But
it was hot.
Yeah. So and we were painting in the sun, not in the shade. So the kids were tough. We started at 7 a.m., so it was in the cooler time. But it's getting to noon, 1 o'clock, and I'm still going strong. What sun? What sunburn? Let's go. And the kids are starting to drop like flies.
Yeah.
And I found myself irritated, man, why aren't you a hard worker? You should be a hard worker. And then I realized, it's been 7 hours.
Yeah. First of all, they're not insane like you are.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess they haven't had any food yet. We should probably get them some food. And they were drinking water, and I was like, drink your water. Make sure you have water. Did you stop and take a drink of water? So I was making sure water. But so I definitely am on the extreme side, on the other way, where I'm like...
Even I'm like, babe, this is enough. It's hot. We can pick this up tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And I'm like, you go home, I'll keep working.
Yeah.
Which is actually what happened that day.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's on you.
I sent
you want to torture
home.
yourself, that's fine.
I love torture. So I had to apologize to the girls the next morning, though. And I had to say, girls, I am sorry for acting like you were, wimping out. I didn't realize how long we had been working. I didn't realize how hot it was. And I'm sorry that now I see your sunburn. And
yeah.
So I had to actually apologize. Basically, we're all messing our kids up in different ways. But,
exactly.
But anyway, it is important to teach work ethic and maybe not be as extreme and insane as I am. But Proverbs 21:20 says, precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it. And just one of the aspects that we want to teach our kids is, working hard, but then what you do with that earnings. What do you do with the earnings? And that's something that we're teaching our children is giving, saving, spending. And we have the percentages that we want them to do. Because if you're wise, then you have things and you have enough money because you haven't just devoured it. You haven't just wasted it or blew it. And so we want to teach them the importance of working hard, but also then what do you do with those earnings afterwards?
So that's some of the positive things, but what about how do we, have a healthy approach to this?
Yeah. How do we bring it up?
How can we do it in the right way? And I think, first of all, it starts with being honest, but reassuring.
That's good.
So rather than saying things like, we can't afford that, which may be true depending on what it is, maybe just reframe the way you had the conversation. And the way that I look at this and I like to have the conversation is that's not in our budget right now.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
And so whatever it is, like you're walking through the grocery store and they want this particular cereal, they want this candy, they want whatever, like that's not in our grocery budget right now. And so you're having an opportunity to teach them about budget, how to make a budget and then stick to the budget and the importance of that, and to think through how they're spending their money and allotting the dollars in the sense that they have, you're able to say, you know what, that's not in our entertainment budget right now. We've spent our entertainment budget on, remember when we went to the park and we got the ice cream or we, went out to eat or whatever it was, we went to the movies together. And so you're having the conversation versus saying, hey, we're poor, we can't afford that.
Yeah, exactly. Because rather than saying we're poor, we can't afford that, what you're saying is we are choosing not to buy that because it would be unwise.
Yeah.
And when you say it's not in our entertainment budget, it's like that's saying I made the entertainment budget.
Yeah.
I chose how much we were going to spend on that, and we've already done that. So it's more of like, it's almost like taking the power back, where it's not like the world has been so bad to us, so we're poor, and this is who we are, so we can't have it. Rather, you're saying we're choosing not to have it because it's not what we have chosen to spend our money on.
Yeah. And so it may be like, hey, we're planning to go to the water park. And so we've budgeted for that. So we can't go to the movies right now. Mm-hmm. That's not in our budget because we're planning this thing, that vacation or whatever else. But you're just changing the way. You're not saying we don't have enough money or we're poor and placing that burden on your kid to, well, don't ask for things. It's saying, no, we know how much we make. We have allotted certain aspects of our budget for this and for that. Mm-hmm. And that kind of dictates how we spend our money because we're trying to be wise with it.
Yeah. And I want to move on from this, but I do want to say this real quickly. If you don't have a budget, you can't say that. So guys, go make a budget. Okay. Age appropriate sharing. This is really important, you guys. This is kind of what it all comes down to is how old is your child and how much can they handle to know right now about your financial situation? Are they old enough to hear, that dad has to get a second job to make sure that you can pay the water bill? I don't know. Like, what is their age? What is not only their age, because just because this child over here is 13 and can handle this 13-year-old over here cannot handle the same information.
Yeah.
So it's not just the age, not the number, but it's the emotional maturity of the child and the mental maturity of the child. So what can they handle? And only share what is appropriate at their age or ability and their level. Because come on, your younger children don't need to know the full weight of your financial stress. Your younger children don't need to know that you were unwise and put a bunch of stuff on a credit card and has huge interest and all you can do is pay the interest every month. Your little kids don't need to know that. Yeah. That is way too much, Yeah,
they don't need to know mommy's got to run down to, pay the power bill before they turn the lights off.
Exactly. Yeah, that's more than they need to hear. Now, teens can handle more, but even a teenager and a young adult, because we have 19 and 18-year-olds in this house who have already graduated high school, but they still need reassurance. They need context of what is happening in the financial world in your home. Like, you can't just tell them, we're about to lose the house. Like, this is not going to help a young adult or a teenager. So yeah, they can handle more, and maybe you need to be letting them in on more because now they're about to, you're going to pass the baton of finances to them, and they're going to have to be handling their own finances very soon. And you don't want them to just drop that baton not knowing what to do with it. You want them to be able to take it and run. But in order to do that, there's got to be more discussions, more teaching, more training, and yet reassurance and context needs to be happening as well, and explaining why it's like this. Why did it happen? Here's the decisions we made. If we hadn't have been foolish in this moment, we never would have gotten ourselves into this situation. Those kinds of things can really help your teenagers.
And then thirdly, just focusing on stability and love. And I like this. What you choose to emphasize makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And so rather than emphasizing what you don't have, what you can't do, what you can't afford, you're instead choosing to emphasize the positive aspects.
Yeah.
What do you have? Mm-hmm. We may not have a brand new car sitting out there, but man, we're so thankful for our used van we purchased that has taken us all over this country and continues to take us all around the place. We're focusing in on things like love and safety, strong family unit, even in hard times where it's like, man, we're struggling and financially we're trying to figure things out. There may be certain things that you can't emphasize in the moment, but I know for us, it's like, hey, we have a great place to live.
Yeah.
Like the house we have is great for us. Do I wish that we had 2 more bedrooms so that each of my daughters could have their own room? Mm-hmm. Most definitely. I wish that was true.
But that's first world problems.
Yeah, exactly. But instead of, emphasizing the fact that we can't afford a house with 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, because we share sometimes.
Well, if we had 6 bedrooms, we could all have our own bedroom.
Yeah.
And you could live in a trash dump and I could have a nice clean room.
Yeah, and then I could just come over for conjugal visits or...
I would have that lock on the door, so okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
This went to a weird place.
But instead of emphasizing the fact that we don't have a space for each of our kids, right? We are emphasizing the positive aspects of the house that we have and what we're able to do and where we live. We can't afford to go out to eat all the time. We're not in a place to do that. So instead of emphasizing the fact that, we can't go out to eat, we can't get this thing, it's, hey, what about emphasizing the opportunity we have to cook together as a family and to make home-cooked meals and to sit around the table and just focusing in on those positive things and highlighting those things in front of our kids instead of weighing them down with all the negatives and all the burdens that really aren't theirs to handle and to bear anyway.
And we need to change the culture in our homes to be different than the culture we live in, because the culture we live in says a vacation where you're just camping and not spending any money is lame, or you've got to go to Europe, you've got to go to Disney World, you've got to go whatever. Vacations have to be fantastic. Our culture tells us it's not a special day unless you're going to pay for a water park or you're going to experience this zip lining thing over here. All of this costs lots of money. Is there anything wrong with any of that? No, not at all. If you have money to be able to do that and you're making wise financial decisions, do that for your family, do that for your kids. It's awesome. But it doesn't mean that a trip where you just hang out outside and enjoy each other's company is bad. And so what we have tried to do is change the culture in our home to be opposite of what our culture is that we live in America, and say okay, yeah, we went to the beach and we took a walk and we played volleyball and this has been an awesome day. How great has this day been?
Yeah.
And how cool is it that we had enough money in the budget to take the day off work and to have a great day? No, we didn't spend any money, but we didn't work either. So things like that. It's reframing and it's changing the culture.
Well, and I think also just having a conversation when you get to a place where you can do certain things, talk to them about the why. So we are in a place where the only thing we owe money for is our house. And so now when we go on a family day, we go to the beach. We're not amusement park people anyway. So we could go to the amusement park every once in a while if we wanted to. I'm glad we're not amusement park people, because I hate amusement parks. If that's your thing, great. But Disney World's literally one of the last places in the world I want to be. But like there's family days where we'll go to the beach and then we'll hit up one of the restaurants on the beach for lunch, or we'll go get ice cream, or we'll go out and get everybody, let them go to the gas station and buy sodas. When there were times where I couldn't get a soda, one soda.
We couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so explaining to them, hey, you know what? We're able to do this because we made a budget, because we've spent wisely, because we planned ahead and we've thought about it. And, we're able to show them the positive aspects and fruit of, hey, this is what it looks like when you're financially responsible. You're able to do these things and not have to worry about going into debt, or how you're going to pay for this or pay for that.
That's right. And, the way we view money, the way we talk about money as parents, the way we handle our money will all have deep effects on our children for the rest of their lives. And so thinking about that, think about this verse, 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, through its craving that some have wandered away from the faith. It does not say that money is evil. So don't misread the verse. If you're rich, you're not full of evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. And so we want to teach our children. We want to model to our children. We want to talk about it, that money is a tool. It's not the goal. My goal in life, Thomas's goal in life, is not to have a bunch of money. That's never been our goal. We want to be content with what we have, no matter how much that is or isn't.
Yeah.
We want to be able to be generous. We want to be able to give. We want to make an impact on eternity with our money. So we want to have enough money for that, but the money isn't the goal. The goal is to give, right? We want to be able to give our kids like amazing experiences that take money.
Yeah.
But money's not the goal. So just think about the way that you view money. Think about the way you talk about money. Think about the way you handle your money, because everything that you do is having a deep effect on your children.
And so family meeting tonight, you're going to sit down and have a money conversation with your kids and take an opportunity to talk to them about budgeting, about saving, about giving and being generous, and making sure that, hey, before they leave the house, like they understand all these things. They've got a financial plan in front of them so that they can make wise choices, and they can not have debt and terrible choices holding them back from whatever it is that God may want them to do in their life, or however he might want them to give and to be generous and to impact this world. And so not necessarily the funnest conversation to have, but the opportunity that you and I have to equip our children to be successful and do whatever in this world. In November, I did a series on finances at our church, and talked about budgeting, talked about saving and investing and giving. And one of the things that I said, and it is absolutely true, and I'm going to say it to you as well, and we say it to our kids, like, there is, if we can teach our kids these principles and they will follow them, there's literally zero reason why they can't be millionaires. There's absolutely zero reason. If they learn to stick to a budget, if they learn to save, they learn to invest, they learn how to be generous, there's no reason why they can't have money and then use it in a way. Now, money's not the focus, and we don't want our kids to make money the focus. The love of money, as Lysandra said, is the root of all evil. But there will be nothing hindering them from supporting missionaries around the world, of traveling places and helping people. And when needs come up, they can help out with those things. And so the money conversation tonight, it's you're just starting it, right? Or continuing it for some of you who are ahead in this conversation. But a needful conversation. Continue that financial education for your kids.
Thanks for joining us today. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org. Or maybe you want to shoot us a message. Maybe you don't like something you heard on the podcast today. Or maybe you have something you want to expound upon and say, hey, you said this and talked about budgeting, and this is how we implement in our family and the results that it has. So we'd love to hear from you. info@familymeeting.org. You can also shoot us a text or call us at 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we discuss sex myths. There's a lot of myths that people are believing about sex, and so we're going to talk about that next week. It will not be the kind of discussion you want to listen to with your children. It'll be just for mom and dad.
I cannot wait for that one.
I bet.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. Yeah, so what's kind of your experience with finances growing up? What did you learn from your parents, either because they taught you or you just observed it? Was it a healthy experience? Were there times where you as a child were worried and afraid that you didn't have enough money and you felt that burden and pressure? Or maybe it's just like me, the social comparison. Like you understood, like you didn't have the same kind of things that other people had. Love to continue that conversation in the comments with each of you. If you are in the Southeast area, we'd love to see you this weekend. Byron, Mississippi Heritage Baptist Church with our friends, the Howells. Make plans to be with us. That kicks off Friday evening. Until then, we'll see you next time.